All right, I think we are ready to get started. Good morning. My name is John Donadio. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Association of Counties. I'm going to welcome you to our third in our series of virtual workshops. This one will discuss and provide an update on 911 funding. This issue has been one that the association has tackled for, it feels like a really long time, like almost a decade or so. And as a result of the leadership of our president, Camden County Commissioner John Young, who I'm going to introduce in a second, and other folks like Monmouth County Sheriff Sean Golden, the association was able to secure some money in the budget in fiscal year 2023 and 2024 for 911 funding. It's not enough. The state still diverts, I want to say up to 90%, but our folks from the New Jersey Wireless Association will address that in detail. And they're also going to talk about how critical it is now more than ever to maintain a precise, accurate, and reliable 911 communications network, and to secure it at the local level. So with that, I want to take a minute to introduce our president, my favorite Camden County president, from Commissioner John Young.
Hello, everybody. I hope all is well. John, thank you so much for giving us this platform, and it's so important for us to do it. First, I'm going to welcome everybody. Like John said, to our third series. We were going back and forth trying to figure out what other workshop could we do. And John said, you know what, we haven't given an update on 911 funding for a little bit, so let's do that. So, John, thank you for always keeping this in the forefront of people's minds. It's been a long journey. I think I've been on this path now for almost 7 years. I think we were just talking in the green room, if you will, about that. And I think it's been 7 years since I've been fighting the fight. And John's right. It was good. It came to fruition. We ended up getting $10 million put into the budget last year, another $10 million put into the budget this year. But the unfortunate thing is that the grant monies and the grant applications that came in well exceeded that $10 million. So we're seeing there is a need for more funding to be inside of in the budget itself. So that's one. And two, as we start to, and I've always said this, and I will continue to say it until we fix this problem. And I don't know what they're waiting for. But it's really going to take some, very bad event to happen in order for us to really realize that we have a broken system, or the system can't hold. And I just think that's not the right way to do it. I think we should be ahead of it. New Jersey is known for a lot of things, and why not be the first and be the best in a 911 system? So we'll keep fighting the fight. I want to thank New Jersey Wireless Association for continuously to be on our side and be a huge advocate for this very, very well needed. So with that said, I'll move out of the way and I'll let the experts really get into it and have some good conversation. But everybody just remember, whenever you get a chance, every time you see a legislator, remind them that we're diverting money that could save lives, right? And that's what it's all about. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the webinar.
Whoops, I'm on mute. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. And thank you again for your leadership on this issue. It was you and Sean Golden through the Wireless Association that first brought this to our association. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping issues. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A and not the chat box. I finally got it right after like 30 webinars. Put your question Q&A in, or your questions in the Q&A, and Dominic and Rob, who I'm going to introduce in a second, we'll make sure to answer at the end of the webinar, which will also be available. Recording of it will be available on our website. And we'll also send it to everyone who's participating today by email as well. I want to take a minute to always thank Angela Wolf, who is operating all the important IT behind the scenes for us. She does a fantastic job, and I never have to worry about letting people in, because I do that at our board meetings, and it's awful, right, John? So with that, I'm happy to introduce two gentlemen that really we have worked with them and had a tremendous relationship over the past decade or so, particularly around this issue. And they were, again, the two individuals that brought it to our attention and have been doing so for over a decade right now. And the first individual is Dominic Villecco. Dominic is the president of V-Comm Engineering and the current president of the New Jersey Wireless Association. And our other good friend is Rob Ivanoff, who is currently the managing director of Cooper Hill Ventures. And Rob, I believe you were a past president of the New Jersey Wireless Association, right?
I was, and Dominic was my vice president, and we are now in very capable hands.
Right. Correct. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to these two fine gentlemen and thank them again for being here today. We appreciate it a great deal and your partnership over the past decade.
Great, thank you, John Donadio and John Young. Thank you for the intro, and thank you for working with us for these past 10 years. It's been a great partnership. We still have a lot of work to do. This is, John, you and I have spoken many times about this. This is an absolute pet peeve of mine, that we can't get the money that people pay for public safety to do the right thing. So hopefully these efforts, and they're starting to pay off, hopefully we'll get them to pay off more over time. So thank you again. I'm going to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. Let's see if this works. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. I guess we can see the screen, correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. Very good. Again, thank you. My name is Dominic Villecco, president of the New Jersey Wireless Association, and with me today, my colleague, Rob Ivanoff. Rob Ivanoff, he is our president emeritus. As Rob had said, when we started this 10 years ago, Rob was the president of the New Jersey Wireless Association. I was the vice president. We've kind of switched roles. I was the chair of the Public Safety Committee. Now he's the chair of our Public Safety Committee. But this has been a hot topic that we as New Jersey Wireless have really pushed for the past 10 years. And we filed our first filing at the FCC in 2013. And we'll talk a little bit about the FCC's annual reporting. But 2013 is when we filed the first filing, and we filed for the past 10 years or so. And we used that filing as a platform to really generate awareness, so people knew what was going on with all the money that was being given toward 911 services, but not being used for the proper things. So hold on 1 second here. Let me see if I can there we go. So a little bit about our association. We were founded in 2005. There's our webpage if anyone's interested in you can join the association too. It's free for anyone to join the association, and we encourage municipal and government people to join the association as well, because we hold educational topic events and seminars, and they're open to anyone, and on a variety of different topics, and 911 had been one of them. We've talked about other things as well. Our association is really comprised of professionals from all sectors of the industry that either work or live in the state of New Jersey. And as I said, we're dedicated to educating the public and local and state government to ensure the growth of our industry. And one of the things that we do as well is we give back to our community through local charitable organizations. So since 2005, we have donated over $550,000 to New Jersey charities. In fact, you can see the picture there from our golf tournament just last month, where we donated $100,000 to local charities in New Jersey that are helping people and helping our fellow residents that are in a bad position, and helping them get out of those positions. So we've got over 2,500 members from all facets of the industry. We've got legal groups, we've got engineering groups, we've got real estate groups, we've got all types of people in our association. As I mentioned, Rob is our president emeritus, and he's the chair of our Public Safety Committee, and I'm the current president in my second term. So with that, I'm going to move this over to Rob, and he and I are going to tag team a little bit. Go ahead, Rob. Can you see the screen?
One of the things we wanted to give you as part of our update, 911 fees, it goes into what we call the 911 Fees and Emergency Response Trust Fund. I have that in quotation marks because it really is not a trust fund. The money just goes into the general revenue fund of the state, and it is spent however appropriations and the budget committees decide. So there is no trust fund. We collect about $120 million a year. This is the 90-cent charge that you see on your voice over IP, your cable bill, your cell phone bill. If you have a landline, it's charged. And just to put it in perspective over time, how it adds up, since the state of New Jersey started collecting fees in 2006, they've collected over $2.24 billion. Now, only 10% of that trust fund is actually spent on your 911 system. So, and therein lies the big issue that we have been working on, as Dominic and Jonathan have described. We have over 200 911 centers. And again, they all have eligible expenses. We're going to do a comparison here in the next couple of charts to show you what other states are doing. On top of that, the wireless industry has been mandated to deploy the new next gen 911 technology, which we're also going to talk about. The state of New Jersey is also in the process of updating their 911 backbone system. Some of you may be familiar with that. This is the network that's currently run by Verizon that allows your PSAPs and your 911 centers to connect to the 911 calls from all the telephone systems. We are in the process of transitioning from a I will call it an obsolete telecom switch network currently run by Verizon to a new IP-based network. The contract was won by Lumen, which is the old CenturyLink. I think they still may keep the CenturyLink brand in certain areas. So just to visually show you, here's the funds that are connected for the 911 trust fund, about a little over $120 million each year. The small chart at the bottom where you see the blue, that's the funding that's gone to the local PSAPs in the counties. So until last year, again, none of the funds went to any of the local PSAPs. I want to switch to the next one, Dominic, and we'll.
Yeah, I'll take
Yep,
this.
we got it. Yep.
So a little bit
Okay.
about the next gen or NG 911, as Robert said. Some of you, we know we've spoken to some of you, and some of you know what's coming, or you've put systems in place today that are NG 911 compatible. But basically what happens is as Robert said, the legacy network that's in place today, and at the time when it was installed back in, I guess it was in the 80s, is that right, Rob, or 90s?
Yes.
Yeah, when it was installed, it was state of the art, but it's long since been state of the art. The current system, basically what it does is you dial 911 and it connects that caller with the dispatch center, who then connects the caller with the either connects it with the first responder, or dispatches the first responder to get to that caller's emergency. The difference with the next gen 911 system is essentially it does the same thing, but it does more than that. It's got the ability to process video, text, pictures. Some of you have texting capability today, but in most cases, the texting capability that you have today is not integrated as part of your dispatcher console. So if a text were to come in, and it comes into your PSAP, your dispatch center, oftentimes it comes in on a separate terminal, and then there's a separate person that then has to get that over somehow to the dispatcher that's taking charge of the situation. With the next gen 911 system, all of this then passes. It passes over an IP or internet protocol network. So it's basically the latest networks that are out there. And what's important about that is when you're doing things like the video, and not just texting, but video, pictures, if someone's at a scene and they're trying to, show a picture of an assailant or whatever, that kind of information can get uploaded to the dispatchers, can get down to, and a lot of these new radio systems are IP-based radio systems, so you can send pictures oftentimes directly to the first responders so they can see, the situation, see what they're going after, that type of thing. What's also important is it gives more precise location information. And as Rob had said, the wireless industry is required by the FCC to ensure that they can pass proper and precise location information. And it allows you to share resources among PSAPs. And one of the big things also is it gives you a better ability to transfer calls among PSAPs. So I know there's been cases, and many of you probably know of these cases. There was one that hit the papers several years back. It was between Salem and Cumberland County. And what happened was a call came in, and it was a wireless call, and over 70% of the calls are wireless. So to 911. So it was a wireless call, as most of them are. And what happened was when that information came in through the 911 system, and I might have my facts here a little bit off, but I believe it came into Salem County, and it was on a cell tower that was, let's say it's near the border, but in fact, the location was in Cumberland County. And so what happened is when that call information got transferred from Salem to Cumberland, the original information that comes in does not transfer on the current system. But with the new next gen system, all of that information would transfer from one county's PSAP to another. So the dispatcher that's actually going to be handling that call would have that information. It's more accurate information. Unfortunately, what happened in that situation was they went to the wrong address. I think it was the house next door. And again, I don't have all my details here. I just remember the story, and it was in the papers. And there was a shooting, and the wrong person got shot. Unfortunately, no one died, from the best of my recollection. But the point is had they had the newer system in place, that wouldn't have happened. And these systems have been around now for quite some time. Other states have been implementing these, and New Jersey is just starting to implement it now. So there's a lot here on this slide, and I think the key issues on this slide is you see how everything's connected. Even the radio system, it's connected to the, I'll show right here, it's connected to the dispatch center. It goes into what's known as an EZNet, which is, I think it's Emergency Services Information Network. So it's basically the backbone, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And this is how you can transfer this information between PSAPs with full transfer of information. It's very important because this, as Jonathan Young said in the beginning, this is how we're able to save lives better. How does New Jersey compare to other states? Well, the recent report, the FCC requires under the Net 911 Act of 2008, requires that the FCC give an annual report to Congress on what's going on with the collection and distribution of 911 fees. So if you read the Net 911 Act, it's very specific as to what the FCC needs to do and what the states are to report. So the states self-report, and generally they all self-report with, for the most part, they report on time and timely information. But 3 states in the most recent report that was issued at the end of last year, and it's always done in December of the year, the 3 of the states were singled out for diverting 911 fees for non-911 purposes, and that is New Jersey, New York, and Nevada. New Jersey and New York have always been at the top of the list, probably for the last 10 years. New Jersey diverts the largest percentage, 75, almost 76%. In the past, it's been as high as 90%. Part of the reason a diversion is a little less this year is because they are spending some of this money for a proper charge, which is this new EZNet or new Next 911 system. 41 other states have already deployed an EZNet and working on Next Gen 911. Some states, and we did a presentation to NENA, who is the National Emergency Number Association. It is the association for all of public safety dispatchers. And I did a presentation 4 or 5 years ago in Atlantic City at their local conference. And we also had a gentleman there from the state of Indiana. And Indiana takes their 911 fees. They charge $1 a month, or at the time they charge $1 a month versus New Jersey's 90 cents a month. They use that $1 a month to fund their entire 911 system. And you compare that to New Jersey, where we can barely get 10% funded toward the 911. So the diversion of 911 fees it's grabbed the attention of the FCC chairwoman, Rosenworcel, and she's been a vocal advocate for change. She had teamed up with in a bipartisan way, teamed up with one of the previous commissioners, and we had her and Commissioner Mike O'Reilly behind us with a lot of these things, and she's a very big advocate. So that's been a help at the federal level. And then the state, the 911 expenses, there are some expenses that are compliant with the FCC's definition of these permitted expenses. So the state currently spends about $14 million a year, a little over $1 million a month for this current obsolete network by Verizon. It's the network. When you dial 911, it's the one that you're using today. And there's about $1 million of expenses for the Office of Emergency Telecom Service. So they're legitimate expenses. Moving forward, and I'll flip this over to Rob, but as Rob had said, a new contract was allocated by or awarded by the state to Lumen, and the ongoing expenses for this EZNet or this next gen 911 backbone are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of that same $14 million. So there'll be a period where there's an overlap of the two systems, and once the old one goes away, it'll be somewhere in the $14-15 million a year range. During that overlap period, it might be as much as $30 million. But even during that overlap period, that means there's $90 million a year that are collected that are not used for the right purpose. Rob, go ahead.
Okay. We wanted to thank our partners that we have worked with, especially New Jersey Association of Counties, John Donadio, Jonathan Young, and Sheriff John Golden have been tireless in showing up for press conferences, being on calls. It's a great partnership. We've made a little bit of progress, and we also want to highlight some of our state legislatures that are, have been supporting through bills and other things. Senator Troy Singleton was sponsoring a bill. I think it's still active. John Donadio or Jonathan Young can maybe address this more, to get some more funding for consolidation for the 911 centers. And also the members of the Assembly Telecom and Utility Committee have also been supporters of this. Unfortunately, they don't have the authority necessary on the budgeting and spending the money. So again, this is really not a trust fund. Just want to give an update on the state of New Jersey. As Dominic had said, they are in the process now of deploying the EZNet. All of your PSAPs, I notice everybody that's on the call. So all your either local, municipal, or county PSAPs will be very shortly, if they haven't already, on the new EZNet. Now, this will give you the ability to have the features of Next Gen 911 that Dominic highlighted, but you will still have to upgrade your equipment, software in your PSAPs in order to offer all of the 911 Next Gen 911 services. So, and hopefully this $10 million grant is a start for some of that. As Dominic had said, other states fully fund both their EZNet and all of their PSAPs that have Next Gen 911 with the 911 fees that they collect. So that'll tell you where we are, and I think we're ready for questions.
Yeah, that's it. We're ready for questions. That was an overview of, frankly, what we've been, and a summary of what we've been working with NJAC on over the past 10 years. We basically keep expanding the information. You can go onto the FCC's website and go look at all the filings, and NJAC has filed a bunch of filings at the FCC in support of ours as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to John Donadio.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that, and a terrific and informative presentation as well. So far, we have one. I think it's a statement in the Q&A, but we're going to open it up to Q&A right now to anybody who's joined us. This is from Dennis Snyder. Dominic, to your point, Indiana requires PSAPs to continually update systems with PSAP to receive future monies, and has most of the system on a 5-year refresh schedule. Good stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. And the bottom line is that Indiana's ahead of New Jersey on what they're doing. And honestly, and all of you have worked with a lot of these new systems, they're IP based, they're software based. So in order to have compatibility, it's not much different than, say, your laptop at the office, where you have to continually update software just to make it compatible. I mean, it makes sense. And Dennis, thanks for that point. And the thing is they use, it's an interesting point where what you're saying here is that in order to continue to receive the monies, they have to stay on the update schedule, which goes back to what Rob had said, which is we know that a bunch of you out there today have next gen 911 compatible systems. Some of you don't. On the next gen 911 compatible systems, I'd be willing to bet that even the ones that are compatible will still require updates. The ones that aren't will require complete replacements. And we know that some of the counties are in that process and some of the municipalities are in that process today. But like any software-driven platform, it's going to continue to require monies in order for you to stay updated and stay compatible. And that's where this money is important. If you go back to what we said, if it takes $15 million a year, even if it's $20 million a year to fund the state portion of this, there's $100 million left over. And this should be going to the actual PCEPs that need it in order to stay up to date.
Yeah, if I can also add, Dominic, one of the things that we have found with this annual report that actually Congress requires the FCC to submit. This was the authority that the FCC and Congress gave to the states to collect the 911 money. And this is, if you will, their oversight of that money. They knew at the time that the next gen systems were being designed, and they realized that there was a funding going to be required. So they authorized the states to collect that money so that they could upgrade to these new systems. And as you can see, 47 other states are doing it right. And unfortunately, we're one of the 3 that is not dedicating that funds to what the FCC and Congress had envisioned we would have.
And John, if I may, there's another question here. I'm going to take the questions out of order because I think it sort of dovetails with the previous question. That is, why are they being the state, allowing the legacy system to remain without a future shutoff date? And I don't know why they don't have a shutoff date, but the next gen 911 system and the way it's set up is it's primarily IP or internet protocol based connectivity. However, there will be legacy connections because there still are people that are out there with twisted wire phone connections. There still are some central phone central offices that still have some of these legacy type connections. So you're going to actually need both for a while. And the whole EZNet, the way it works is there's a gateway that'll be set up with it'll give you the ability to still process legacy calls and but also process new next gen 911 calls. And so I don't know, if and when the date would be, but they certainly will need to shut it off at some point because it's not operable at a certain point. I think the next question was, how can counties apply for a grant? John, I don't know if you can help with that.
Just
I can help. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to kind of piggyback off Dominic's with the legacy cutoff date. And Dom, wouldn't it have to do also with, the county's ability to support a system, right? Like we have some counties that are still struggling for internet services, period, right? So in order for them to really get into an IT based system, right? Internet based system that their web has to be up to, or their service in the area have to be up. So there's a lot that goes into figuring out who can do what. I know when we changed our system over, it was $40 million cost, right? For your initial jump for that cost. And for us, every other year or whatever, it's $500,000-$600,000 here for upgrade, $700,000 here for an upgrade. So it does get expensive. And that's kind of what we're looking for, right? Is we're looking for that supplement in order to help us out with an upgrade. That, by the way, the federal government demanded us to get off 500 megahertz to go to 700, right? Without any, is the good old, hey, we're going to tell you what to do, but we're not going to fund it system, right? So,
Right.
so we have to start to think about that as well. I mean, there are places in our state still, like Dominic said, that are on twisted wire, right? They can't hold anything else, right? So we got to figure that out.
So you're correct, John. It will be a combination. So ultimately, the shutdown date would probably depend upon how many legacy customers are out there and users are out there that still use twisted pair to make a phone call. And there are some, and there are some areas where I know some areas specifically, like in the fringes of Salem and Cumberland County, where you get copper service only. That's it. And so, yeah, certainly that's going to be a piece of it. And then the way that the whole EZNet was designed anyway, was to allow for a transition. And sometimes I've seen this like in cellular and other telecom networks too. It could take 10 years to transition certain things. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to have that 911 network that the state's operating for 10 years. Maybe it's some scaled down version of it. Maybe it comes through some other means, but it could take a while to transition that for sure. And it'll be a combination of end users and also the PSAP's capability. You're absolutely correct. I think the other question was about how can they apply for grants? So John, I don't know if John Donadio or John Young, you can.
I wish we knew. Wish we had an answer for that, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
this is
a subject, man, for John and I a little bit. But
we're trying hard not to take shots here today. But listen, the grant thing was, me and John both, when the first $10 million went into place, we tried to get along with the administration and say, hey, can you bring us along board? Give us the process so we can get it out to our people, so we understand, so they can understand how to apply for the grants, so they know how to get the money, the whole 9 yards. And we got crickets all the way through. And then all of a sudden, one day, magically appeared that they sent out letters, right? Office of Information Technology sent out letters to all the PSAPs themselves. So my suggestion is try to get in touch with the Office of Information Technology, and they're the ones who were supplying the grant.
Yeah, just to add a little detail on that, I've been working with Alan Weston on John's staff on this, and we found out last year that the funds actually flowed through OETS into the New Jersey GIS, the geospatial system, and they were actually, we don't know how they administered it, but we have the contacts now, and we want to get on the front edge of that. So yeah, it was less than transparent last year, but I think we have a, have a window now of the process, and we'll help the counties on applying for the grants and getting the information.
Yeah, thank you, John and Rob. You did a much better job than I would have. You were much more diplomatic than I was.
Trying to keep you out of trouble, boss.
I know. I appreciate it, brother. I'm getting cranky in my old age. So we have one more question, and this is from Commissioner Ostrom in Salem County. As you know, Dominic, Salem County has committed to a major upgrade. I'm assuming it will be ready for these new systems you're describing.
Yes, I do believe, right, John? I think we heard that at our association meeting where we're down there, where there is a major overhaul that's going on down there, which is great. And listen, and we've always said we're only as strong as our partners are, right? And we talked about this a little bit earlier. If natural disaster should hit right now, right, the inoperability for me to talk to my neighboring county, it's not there. I mean, it's there, right? But it's not as easy as, hey, let me jump on channel 5 and talk to them just like that, right? You got to put a patch switch in. You got to do all these things in order for you to have inoperability, instead of us being like it's 2023 and be able to turn my radio to a station where we all can talk at the same time, right? So we can talk to each other. So that's what it's about. And this is what the whole movement has been about, right? Me and Sheriff Gold has always said, Camden County and Monmouth County, we got pretty good systems, right? We're proud of our systems. We made the investment, but everybody's not fortunate enough to make that investment, right? So as we move along, we've always said, It's about our partners, right? It's about our neighbors. It's about everybody else that's involved. It's about the entire state of New Jersey for us all to be able to call 911 and somebody pick up the damn phone, right? That's all we're looking for here. And we're afraid somewhere down the line. I don't want to be this guy who's screaming, crying wolf, but it's going to happen, right? At some point, if we don't do something about it, if we don't fix it, we're going to call. We're not going to get an answer on the other side of the phone. And that's going to be a problem. Right. And that's all we're trying to solve here. That's the whole purpose of this movement that we have going right now, is to ensure that we offer a service to our residents, right? That when they call for an emergency, somebody picks up the phone and somebody responds.
Right. If I could just add to that, Commissioner Ostrom, first of all, thank you for joining us. You're right. I'm well aware that the new system that Salem is looking at putting in today, it'll be like most of the other new systems that are out there today. Will have next gen 911 capability. There will still be some other cost to make that connection to the state, and until the state comes back with what's required and some of the costs for those things, there are just unknowns at this point. But it'll have the next gen 911 capability, which all the new systems that will be installed throughout the state have that. So there still are some that don't have that capability, but certainly many of the counties and municipalities have been upgrading, and they have that capability. One of the things I mentioned earlier was that even after this EZNet, which is just the backbone, even after this EZNet is put into place, there'll still be ongoing costs, there'll be connectivity costs, there'll be a bunch of different things to make those connections. And if you look at this 14, or even if it's 30 million for a period of time because of overlap, there's still $90 million left over that can be distributed to 21 counties. I mean, you think about it. I mean, that should easily cover the cost. And the other thing is that if you go look at the 911 Act, the Net 911 Act, the federal act, it's supposed to cover things like salaries, like training, like equipment, like phone answering stuff, basically anything that goes on in your dispatch center. There's more than enough money. And if you go back to what Rob Ivanoff had presented, where over $2 billion have been collected since the state instituted these fees, and only 10% of that has actually gone to just managing this legacy network. I mean, it's really a crime from that perspective that that these monies aren't going to the place where it needs to go. This is something, it's a completely bipartisan issue. It impacts every single one of us that live in New Jersey, every single one of us. We have, what do we have? 1 hour.
So, can answer that, Dominic. Have there been discussions, if you don't mind, of forced consolidation among this association? So that's a great point, and I think it's something that I want to circle back with our president and Sean Golden and the Wireless Association to talk about what our next steps are, because there's been nothing to force the consolidation. Everything's been to incentivize the regionalization, particularly at the county level. That's been our message. But we're basing that recommendation on, I think it's a 2016, the 911, study commission report that recommends that we regionalize and move in that direction. And I think we need to update that. So maybe that's our next step, and we'll have to kind of flush out some of the details, and that maybe we form a task force to make those recommendations, that we have to be a little bit more stronger in our incentivizing counties and municipalities to move to a more regional 911 system. So I don't know, John, if you have any thoughts, or Dominic or Rob, on that, but I think that's how we keep this issue out there, is maybe we have a legislatively formed 911 system task force to study and make recommendations, with the end goal being, listen, we need to do this at the regional level, at the county level, and not just by incentivizing, be a little stronger.
Listen, John, we talk about regionalization a lot, right? Like I'm one of those firm believers that it's kind of the way we're going to get ourselves out of this tax issue, but that's another discussion for another day. But when we start talking about regionalizing service, it just gives you a more efficient service, right? It gives you a broader base. It gives you more buying power. It gives you, you're able to go and you're able to save your municipalities money. You're able to build a workforce and that everybody's there. The biggest, I guess, it was more of the hometown rule that people aren't doing it because oh, I want to miss my 911 dispatcher. No, you're not. You're really not. You know what I mean? Because you're still going to be able to call and you get a better bang for your buck when you regionalize services. Just we found in Camden County that our services is, we answer almost 1 million calls a year through our services. So it's a good way for you to capitalize and really get a strong 911 center. To me.
So, hey, I think we got to invite Dennis Snyder into our new 911 committee here, man. I like some of the stuff he's saying on here. He said we have almost more PSAPs per capita than Texas. I love it. Dennis, you're now on our committee.
Yeah, I'm in. We could use another sharpshooter.
There we go. Yeah, John, if I could just add, if we, one of the things we've learned in this annual report now, and this is the 14th year, the template pretty much across the country is based on a county consolidation. Some of the larger metropolitan areas have regionalized even beyond that, but the county model works. And, if we look just in New Jersey, with Monmouth County and Hunterdon County, and I think, John, you're pretty close to having all of Camden County consolidated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the model.
Yeah, we're 36 out of 36 for fire and EMS services, and just 2 of our large municipalities have their own police dispatch just because there's so much frequency on it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had an upgrade and had money to put a bigger system in, I could add more channels. I can add capacity for it, and we can take those in. So those are some of the things that we talked about, right? We don't want them using up all our channels for their special details. Yeah.
And if I can add one thing, John Donato, you had mentioned about the study. It was done by Rutgers, one of the schools within Rutgers. I seem to recall it was in 2006, but we had identified it in one of our filings at the FCC. But the study, it's a good study to read. The study, basically what it says is that there's over 200 PSAPs. It recommends consolidation. But the real issue was, and some of the things that the state was talking about at that time, but I think that's since dropped, was that if and when Next Gen 911 came along, they were only going to run fiber for this connectivity. They were only going to run fiber to county PSAPs, and that any municipal PSAPs would be required to bear that expense themselves. Now, my understanding is the state, that I think just went fallow at this point, just laying fallow, but the real driving issue, and one of the things that Rob Ivanoff just referred to, the real driving issue is just cost. And the issue is, as John Young had said, at least from a dispatch perspective, you're able to just get greater efficiency and cost. So I think the original question was, is there forced participation or forced consolidation? And you had answered that, but I think what's going to happen is as this Next Gen 911 comes and there's these software costs and connectivity costs and these costs just continue to escalate. I think it's going to require that it's going to cause different governments to really relook at how they're doing things, because some of these costs, as you know, just dealing with your computer network, some of the software costs just get out of control on an annual basis.
Yeah, just think about your iPhone. You update your iPhone every 3 months.
Yeah.
Right. And it's no different from your services.
And then there was another question here. Can we provide a link to the 911 law? What we'll do is John Donato, I think we've sent it to you before. We'll send you, we've got copies of the next 911. It's probably something you could just put on your website, but it's the Net 911 Act of 2008. So you can look that up. I think we had it in our presentation. There was a House bill number associated with it. But it's an interesting act because it talks about things that are, it talks about expenses and things that'll work. And then the other thing is you have to follow along these filings over the last 10 years or however long. It's been 13 years, I think, or 15 years since they've had these filings. You got to follow along with these filings, because one of the questions that has come up at the federal level is, what are eligible expenses? So in the act primarily talks about things associated with taking and making and receiving calls. So basically you're receiving the 911 calls, which would be dispatchers, which would be dispatch consoles, which would be any of the telecom costs, things like that. Then there's been, and one of the things that frankly we've tried to push at the FCC level is there's much more to that. There's these 911 systems. As John Young had said, Camden County spent $40 million for a complete overhaul of the radio system, the dispatch system, the whole 9 yards. That's what enabled them to bring all these communities together on the same system. And we've argued at New Jersey Wireless at the FCC, and so have some other associations, that those costs should be involved as well, and that the act should be expanded. And the reason is, you go back to that diagram that we showed, which was that some of these new radio networks are IP radio networks. So theoretically, I could get a picture on either a cell phone that's connected to it through FirstNet or some other connection, or on one of my push-to-talk radios that has a screen. I could get a picture sent to that first responder. So it's an end-to-end communication as compared to the old ones. That's why we've argued that it should really cover everything that's associated with the 911 response.
Yeah, John.
In the link, I'm sorry. In the link, I put the bill in the chat room. So if you guys want to click on, if you want to go to the chat room, you can click on the link to the bill.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I was also going to send John, or I'll send the link for that, what we referred to, that 14th report of Congress that the FCC makes to Congress. And there is a ton of information in there that describes in detail allowable expenses, what has been expanded over the years, and there's all kind of references and links in there also. So, I mean, this is an issue that, you know, has been high visibility and has been worked on for 14 years now.
Right. Where does, I actually have a question, gentlemen, and I should know the answer to this. Where does the 911 task force, where do those recommendations stand with Congress? I know, and Sheriff Golden was a member of that task force, and they made a number of recommendations that states should follow, and part of that were some sanctions that if they didn't, cease with the diverting of the funds. Do you have any updates on that?
I don't know, Rob. I know we actually, the good news is we actually nominated Sheriff Golden because we wanted some representation from New Jersey on that task force. And we knew that he was intimately involved and he's direct law enforcement. We figured he'd be the perfect person, and they accepted it. So that was great because he gave some really good input on behalf of our state. Go ahead, Rob. There's other.
I think the issue is, and the FCC took that information and took it to Congress, because right now the only authority that the FCC has, and through NTIA, which is the National Telecom and Information, and they are one of the primary funding sources to take, for example, the funds that come through these spectrum auctions and devote money to broadband or 911 upgrades. And there is a provision in there that if you divert funds, of which New Jersey, you're not eligible for any of those federal grants. Now, the challenge there is, we take $120 million a year and $100 million doesn't go to 911. Well, there hasn't been $100 worth of federal funding available to New Jersey to have an impact. So that could change, but we're and we're pushing to make that change. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't think we have any other questions. I do see a hand up with one of the attendees, Laura. So Laura, if you can maybe type your question in the Q&A, we can answer that in the next minute or two. If not, I just want to again thank Dominic, thank Rob, thank President Young, and Sean Golden, who I know is on this call listening, again, for your leadership and your commitment to this issue. I'm glad we had this webinar because it reinvigorated me, and I could see it in John's eyes too, that it reinvigorated him to keep moving forward with this issue. And we'll certainly reconvene over the next couple of weeks to discuss what our next step should be to keep this issue out there. So, John Young, any last words?
No, again, thanks everybody. And as always, look, the association is only as good as its members, right? So, legislative, they hear a lot from us. But we're not necessarily all their constituents, right? So everybody that's in the room right now, everyone has a legislator. And we just ask you to just go through it and just keep pressing the fact that that fund needs more money and just keep putting pressure on them. And we'll see where we go. Pressure's got us where we got this far. So we believe a little bit more pressure, a little bit more funding, right? So, so just keep up the good work, everybody, and we'll keep fighting for you guys as well.
Great. Thank you, John. We appreciate it. And you're right, man. Your voice matters and makes a difference. We'll make sure to make this video available. It'll be up on our website, as will be the PowerPoint presentation, and we will email it to everyone who is registered for this event. So again, thank you again to our friends at the Wireless Association, and hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.